Welcome to the Mismatch. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me as he does every Monday night from TheRinger.com is Kevin O'Connor, a.k.a. Kevin O'Bomber, Kevin O'Concert, Kevin O'Climber, Kevin O'Camera, Kevin O'Conflict, Kevin O'Candyland, Kevin O'Blazarian, Kevin!
Verno! What's going on, man? How you doing? How was your weekend?
Everything was great. We've got a bunch to get to on the show because we have gotten a lot of questions in our mailbag, which we have asked for the summer episodes, and so we will get to a bunch of those. But two news items that we need to hit. Right before we were about to start recording, I mentioned to you, I said, look, we've got to talk about the Zion picture. You had not seen the Zion picture. I wish we would have gotten your reaction live on the pod. But utter disbelief. For people that haven't, you could just go Google search it. There's a picture that was posted, Zion Williamson at a basketball camp with a kid, and immediately anyone who has paid attention to Zion Williams' career from Duke on is in stunned disbelief. This is a guy that had a weight clause, I believe, in his contract, and that was news when it first happened, but he seriously looks to be in the best shape of his life. Everybody always jokes about so-and-so put on all of this muscle and so-and-so is down X number of pounds. If this picture is real, there is no, you just see the visual of him and he looks like a different human being than what we have seen. He even is quoted as saying he is down from his playing weight at Duke. So we truthfully have never seen Zion Williamson at this size. And so mega impressive. We have talked for 6 years about how he could be one of the best players in the world. And a lot of people have criticized him for his weight and thought that may be holding him back. But my God, Kevin, we may be in for getting to see the best of is truly yet to come.
And for the time being, for Zion, he looks like a guy that could do better than Mariah Mills. For the Pelicans, of course.
Come on. Come on. Leave the guy alone.
Look, for the Pelicans, Chris.
He was listed last year at the Pelicans at 284 pounds, that's ridiculous. If he was 284 pounds, then I'm 140.
Then the Pelicans look like they are the bright future Pelicans again. With Zion looking like this, it reminds me of, remember that old video in high school with him next to that little white boy kind of like trolling him, right? Zion was lean then, thin, but still super athletic. He looks just like an older version of that young kid in high school at this point with the level of weight that he's burned off of his body. It's impressive. He looks good. He also had the quote saying, "I want to win it all." I saw that on the graphic with the photo posted on social media. So for Zion, man, impressive. And for the Pelicans, it makes me think about, if he stays healthy, if he looks good, is it actually worth holding on to Ingram here? Maybe this is one of the reasons why they haven't settled for anything cheap. Maybe they're like, hey, let's take a look at new look Zion with Brandon Ingram. Maybe this is something that could work even better than it did last season when, those guys did look better than they had in previous years when they barely played it all together.
Now, I still want to get Ingram out of the way. I want to make this a Zion team. He's obviously got a different focus.
But we just watched the Celtics win the finals with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum after years of those two guys. Should they split them up? Shouldn't they split them up? And I know Ingram and Zion don't have playoff success. They haven't made deep runs like Jaylen Brown and Jason
What
Tatum.
Are you talking about?
But I'm just saying.
Those were arguing about guys that were in East Finals when they were NBA fetuses.
Yeah, but my point, yes, I know. But my point is that circumstances are dramatically different. The only comparison here is with two teammates with different circumstances here. And they did show some flashes together last year. Maybe it's time to let it grow for another year before Ingram hits free agency. Maybe you trade him at the deadline, but maybe you give it just a little bit more time when there's nothing out there that makes sense to take right now. That's my only point.
Well, maybe if, look, the sooner the Pelicans realize that Zion Williamson is the best player, he's got to be taking the maximum amount of shots and then everybody else revolves around him. the better off they will be as a franchise. And maybe this is the turning point moment, because it's always been hard to turn it over to him when he's a guy you can't count on. And so hopefully this weight loss will then turn him into the guy that you can count on. He said he's at 281 right now. He was 285 at Duke, and he said by training camp he wants to be down to 272. I mean, that's a different human being, because, I mean, he was way over 300 last year, for sure. I mean, you remember me and you sitting next to each other at the in-season tournament. Well, I mean, he's walking up. I mean, LeBron James, who's 40 years old, I remember us doing the pod after and going, why is the 40-year-old guy the most explosive athlete on this court right now when Zion Williamson's on it? It's crazy. It was like you're wishing for things that hadn't taken place yet, because he is an absolute total force of nature when he is at his best. And he is that athlete that gets his hand on, in a passing lane, and he's at the other rim before you know it. I mean, there's just a level of explosion he has that is a top 0.0001 percentile in the world. And so, man, it'd be cool to see him put it all together at some point. And this is certainly the best he has looked ever since we've seen him in an NBA uniform. And so maybe it'll be good for him. It certainly could help his injury thing too, right?
Yeah.
Carrying all that weight is hard.
Part of it. Yeah, it was a big part of it. I mean, last season, his final game of the season, he played 70 games, a career high for him. In the last month of the year, he was on an absolute ferocious tear for the Pelicans. I mean, over his last 17, 20 games or so, he was, 25 points per game on elite efficiency still. He was passing the ball. He was rebounding, but he couldn't last. He couldn't make it to the postseason. And then the Pelicans get swept. And Zion, despite, he's been an all-star twice. He's been on an all-rookie team. He's, had these great highs. But in 5 years, he hasn't played in the playoffs. He hasn't been to the playoffs. He hasn't appeared in a single playoff game. Ingram played in playoffs. Zion has not. And I wonder if this was finally the year where he's like, I played 70 games and I still couldn't make it. Maybe he had an awakening this offseason and he said, okay, this is time to get serious. I'm entering my mid-20s. It's now time to start winning. And maybe we're about to see a completely different version of Zion Williamson, one that elevates the Pelicans to heights that we haven't seen in recent years. His weight alone, if it improves his durability and improves his play, that changes, I think, the way we have to talk about the Pelicans.
I don't think there are. I don't think at his peak there are 10 players in the league better than him. I really don't. I think he's just an impossible guard because he is too fast for your big guys and he is too strong for your others. And I would love to see the best of him. Wouldn't that be the craziest thing ever? They finally just ditch them on the national TV schedule. And then he becomes the guy,
my God.
They've gotten burned by it year after year after. For 5 years, they've gotten burned by it, trying to put this guy on TV. And now they finally don't put the Pelicans on TV. They've got this paltry number of nationally televised games. And if he becomes the Zion that was always expected to be, and then we've got to just catch him on League Pass,
hilarious.
It's kind of wild in retrospect.
I really wish the NBA had better mechanism for, flexing games in and out of those
Second
schedules.
half of the season, it's better.
Yeah, no, it's definitely better. But even early season, it would be nice if it were just more flexible, even early season. But I know it can't be perfect like that. But I mean, look, like I said, for the Pelicans, people wonder about their center position. They signed Daniel Tice. They draft Missi from Baylor. They don't have a lot of clarity at the center position. But if Missi's really good early on in his career, he's going to be a versatile defender. He's going to be a shot blocker. He's going to be a lob threat. I think at a minimum, he'll be able to play 15, 20 minutes per game for you. I wonder, there was rumors about the Pelicans playing more small. Will Zion not actually be the center in those situations? Will it actually be Missi in those situations with him being such a switchable piece? But Zion could actually defend better on the perimeter now. I wonder if that's actually the vision for New Orleans, because he's not going to be a small ball center, especially now at this weight, I don't think. But maybe he can be more switchable for you.
Man, they got to have somebody that can play some defense behind them. Right.
Well, Misi could be that guy. I mean, I really, really like him. I think getting him at pick 21 for New Orleans, that's like really good value. 6'11", 7 feet almost, great long length, great shot blocker, lob threat. Like he could have great chemistry with Murray, McCollum, and pick and rolls, Ingram for that matter too. So you get shooting on that team with Trey Murphy. Hopefully Herb Jones can sustain his shooting success moving forward. They're an interesting team, man. They are. I still think they got to flip somebody, probably McCollum. But I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by the fact that they're keeping Ingram into the season, as we assume. It's mid-August at this point.
You got to be intrigued. You're Kevin O'Pelican. You can't ditch him now.
Of course I would not ditch them, but I'm especially intrigued with the Zion weight loss.
For sure.
It changes the way we have to project the Pelicans.
I agree. And hopefully we get to see the best of him. The other NBA note that we do need to mention before we get to the mailbag stuff is Guerschon Yabusele, who dunked on LeBron. I said, man, I think he's an NBA player. Like, I don't think this is just playing European basketball. And you had talked him up and talked about his, how he did not shoot the three all that well throughout the tournament that was the Olympics. And yet in his seasons playing overseas, that is something that he has proven to be able to do at a reliable tick. And if you see a guy that he could defend, he's big, he's strong, in shape, and he can knock down corner threes, man, what an unbelievable possible fit it is that the Sixers are able to get this guy for $2 million. If we're right about him and he's a guy that could be in an NBA rotation, what an unbelievable fit, because golly, your fourth, fifth option, you might be coming off the bench, but you've got a perfect opportunity. That's a team that needs guys that can just space out the floor and knock down corner threes. You've got Maxey. You've got Embiid getting all that of attention, right? The corner guy pulls over to him to bring in the double, and he can kick it back out to you. So this guy can do the 3-and-D thing. I think they got if you could get a guy that could be in your rotation for $2 million, that is absolute gold. Diamonds, in fact. And so I'm unsurprised that Daryl is the one that pulled it off. And I think more surprised that somebody else didn't go grab him, because I wouldn't be surprised at all if he turns into a rotation player in the NBA. And like I said, for $2 million, geez Louise, that's unbelievable.
No, I said it to you in the couple games at the Olympics. Yabu looks like an NBA player, and
he does.
Like you said, he didn't shoot it well in the knockout rounds in the Olympics. He didn't shoot it well really the entire Olympics. But Guerschon Yabusele was a guy with the Celtics in the NBA, 32% from three, and he goes overseas. His first year, he shot 33% from three. Not a great year for him overseas his first year, but then ever since then, 2020-21 season, right? 44% from three, 2022, 40% from three, 2023, 36 from three, and then 2024, 45% from three. So he's been over 40% over the last 4 seasons overseas. His free throw percentage has dramatically improved in those years too, up from the high 60s or low 70s in years prior with Boston and his first year overseas. So something shifted with his jumper mechanics, or something shifted with his feel. And that improved his jumper dramatically. And if you have a guy that puts in great effort on defense, as we saw for France, that hustles, that rebounds, that's a big body that can finish inside the paint, and he can shoot threes at a really good level, that guy is going to be an NBA player. And so for the Sixers, getting him at that real low price point, taking him from Real Madrid, I think he could be a guy that's part of that rotation for Philadelphia. It could work next to Joel Embiid. Hell, maybe you can play a little bit of small with him for that matter too. And I think for Philly, their roster, they just feel just like they don't have any holes. What are the real flaws with Philadelphia right now, other than durability with Embiid?
That's right? It's all dependent on health.
That's it. Yeah, that's
when they were healthy last year, they were awesome.
I know. But that's about it. Their additions, the veterans, Caleb Martin, Eric Gordon, Kyle Lowry, bringing him back, like the draft picks, Jared McCain,
No, this is a year with championship dreams for sure.
Yeah, I think so.
And we wondered, the reason we're bringing up a guy who is not some premier player in the league is, we had talked a lot throughout the summer of like, who's the guy that's going to make the impression in the Olympics and get an NBA gig out of this?
And that was
sure enough,
Yabu.
he did. I mean, look, he's on the court against the best players in the world. Hall of Famers. And he did not look out of place at all, right?
Not at all. Every game he had moments.
No, he destroyed LeBron on that dunk. You know what I mean? That says something to me. And not just that one play, but like, good grief, a guy that is that tenacious and willingness to go to the basket, but can also shoot some threes and defend. I'm with it. So Good job by you, Daryl Morey. Really good job by you.
Yeah, I like the addition a lot. I mean, Philly really had an A+ offseason. They got their dream guy with Paul George. They filled out the bench with a bunch of quality players. They have lineup flexibility now. They have star depth if Embiid does have to miss any time. You'd expect Tyrese Maxey, after his rate of improvement every single year, Maxey gets better. Why not now at age 23, he takes another leap? Why can't he get better? He went from 8 points per game to 17 to 20 to 26. Why can't he improve a little bit more as a playmaker, as a shot creator, as a decision maker? I think Philadelphia is right up there with the best teams in the East with a real shot to win it all.
Well, Boston's the one you got to worry about, and now you've loaded up with some big wings. That's been a big, soft spot for them. It's like they hadn't really had the wings in the same way, right? They're running Tobias Harris out there. Like, it's not you're dealing with Tatum and Brown. In the end, you got to beat Tatum and Brown. And so you're a lot better off with the group they've got now by going and grabbing Caleb Martin, grabbing Paul George, grabbing Yabusele, grabbing these guys that might be able to give you some minutes here and there and find the right mix to be able to deal with that group. And then maybe present your own problems, on the other end by having super speedy guard and at his best as dominant a big man as we've had. So, again, they just got to stay healthy. But the roster's great. All right. We got a lot of questions that we got to get to from our listeners that have sent in for the mailbag. Go ahead, Kev. What do we got?
All right. We were just talking about a team that should be at the top of the East. Let's talk about a team that will be at the bottom of the East. This question is from Dave. He said, I grew up in D.C. and caught Bullets fever when they made it to the finals back-to-back in 78 and 79. They haven't won 50 games in a season since. I'm 55 years old now. What do you think the chances are that I'll still be around to enjoy it when the Wizards finally win another title?
I mean, not knowing Dave's health.
What's the average age of a man in America? Like 79, 80?
I mean, geez, this is tough. I know sometimes it can come off like I like being mean, but I'm just goofing. I love people that are diehard fans of something. And, my beloved Joe House is a diehard fan. I mean, it's hard to say, look, man, maybe you could get Cooper Flagg and he turns into be the next great thing in the NBA. Maybe with this year, right? Sometimes this can happen faster than you think. Look, I would certainly say it's not happening in the next 10 years, okay? Because you've got to count on drafting a generational superstar.
Isn't that all it comes down to, Chris? Isn't that it? Isn't it all about what they end up with in 25 or 26 in the draft with Cooper Flagg and Boozer and the Vansta, like all these guys?
So if they're a generational superstar and you get them, now we're putting that probably 2-3 years from now for they or rookie year. Then we know that you don't win until you're usually 27, 28, somewhere in there.
So another 9 years or so.
All right, bro. So look, you cross your fingers, hope you get a generational superstar, and then in 10 years, you know what, Dave? I'm going to tell you it's not impossible. Look, you still got to beat 29 other teams, but
Well, 31 other teams with expansion. 31 other teams.
Yeah, right. If people are right, and these guys are truly like franchise-changing guys, that gives you a chance. You got to build out around them. And I'm not telling you that Cooper Flagg or AJ DeBanster or any of the guys that are on their way, but somebody's going to pop. Somebody's going to be that Jokic or Giannis or Kawhi or whoever, right? And so these years of misery, the John Wall years were fun. A couple of those John Wall years were fun. A couple of those Gilbert Arenas years when he was Agent Zero were fun. But John Wall wasn't the franchise-altering superstar with the number one pick. You're going to get, hopefully, the number one or number two or number three pick in the next couple of drafts. And so you've just got to pray for that. And then you never know. But you have to get a generational superstar, and that's your means to get it. And you'll certainly be in position to at least get a high draft pick in these next few years. So I'm going to say you're not dead yet. I'm going to say look at it glass half full. But you just better hope you don't catch these, these Detroit luck where you had the sorriest team ever and then you end up with like the fourth or fifth pick in these drafts. You just got to hope you get lucky one time and it's the right time.
A comment from Simon. He said, I listened to the last pod and I was shocked that Verno was aligned with the Sydney Kings out here. He says, they're the common day Lakers of the Australian League and nowhere near the equivalent to Memphis. And then he says some stuff about how Sydney people are snobby wankers who sniff their own farts. And then he says they don't follow basketball in a genuine way. Australians who disagree with that, I apologize with Simon's comments, but he says, disgrace, Verno. Make it right and try again to find an Aussie team to follow. I'd love our Australian listeners to respond to Simon's comments. We have many of them around the world. We very much love our Denmarkian friends, our Australian friends, but our Aussie fans, is Simon right? Is Chris making the wrong choice here? What's going on?
Okay. This is gonna hurt my credibility with my Australian brethren. I know literally nothing about that league. No, I don't know anything about the league or the fans. I know that they've won the title.
Yes.
I know that they have had the likes of former Memphis Grizzly Jarrell Martin. I know they have had other guys that I have known over the course of the past couple of years, but my buddy's the president of the team. And I was, that's why I root for them. I love Chris Pondgrass. That's why I root for the Sydney Kings. It ain't like I'm watching all the games. And it's not like I like my friend. So honestly, if he left, I'll go to wherever team he goes to. I don't care. I ain't rooting for them. I'm rooting for him.
I hope the Pelicans hire him.
Yeah, well, then we might have to have a discussion. But I'm saying another Australian team.
Yes.
But yeah, I just want him to do well. I don't know anything about the dynamics of Australia basketball. But by the way, shout out to the guy being named Simon. Very, very rare name that I've always had a fondness for.
Why?
And I think I had a fondness.
Says?
No, I think it was the Chipmunks. He was the one with glasses. You know what I mean? I always liked Alvin and the Chipmunks. Right? Alvin, Simon, Theodore.
Simon had the glasses. Yeah, just Googled it to confirm. Yeah. Yes, he had the glasses.
Alvin, Simon, Theodore.
You wear glasses when you were a kid? Or do you still wear glasses now often?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
No. Both my kids do. But they,
You a contacts guy now?
No. I just can't read things super up close usually.
Oh, okay.
And then a lot of times I'll wear I had to start wearing those blue light glasses because I was a terrible squinter on TV. Yes. The lights.
Why? Because of the lights?
The lights would bother me, but those glasses, what I found is they dulled them. And so I could keep my eyes open regular.
I had an experience like that once
Really
before.
weird.
It was at the Ringer's offices and Studio C, we call it. And for like, there was one time I was recording through the Ringer with Tate, and like, I was just like, I found myself squinting. It's like when you step outside of the movies into the light after 2-3 hours inside the movie theater, and you're like, you can't look at anything. That's what I felt like. That's only happened to me once, though, of all the times, like with TV lights and everything like that.
Well, so Simon, it's a name I was always fond of, and I've never known anybody named Simon in my life either. I mean, obviously, Simon Cowell became big on TV.
Of course.
But I've never
personally.
I've never worked with one. I've never been around one. I've never known any. I've never, like, my kids have never been on a team with a kid named Simon. I've never known a parent named Simon. It's just a name that doesn't exist, but I do
How
like
about
that
last
name.
names? Last name Simon? Have you ever known someone with the last name
Carly
Simon?
Simon? I don't know. Paul Simon. I love him.
There's an assistant coach in the NBA, Miles Simon, but not
He
first
played at
name.
Arizona. I remember him as a player.
Yeah.
He's an assistant coach in the NBA?
Yeah, the Suns.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, he was the Lakers G League South Bay Lakers head coach for a few years after being their assistant.
Awesome player at Arizona. You know, he's the and that was the famous Jim Nantz call. Simon says national championship when they won the title. He won the title at Arizona.
Actually, I just looked
I'm
it up.
old as crap.
Miles Simon no longer with the Suns after Budenholzer was hired. I'm not sure where he is right now. Anyway, enough Simon talk. I've also never known a Simon, for what it's worth. But thank you, Simon. Let's see. Let's go with this one. Wayne asked us, well, he mentions first, your debate about whose career you would pick between all-star role player with NBA champs versus superstar with no championships is perfectly embodied in Jrue Holiday versus Damian Lillard. Considering the fact that you both agreed on picking the role player career with championships, would you still pick Jrue Holiday over Damian Lillard so far in their careers? I would. I'd still pick Jrue. He's 1-2. He did it in different circumstances. He had the amazing moments in his career, the steal on Halliburton for the Celtics in the East Finals, the lob to Giannis in the NBA Finals. Dame has playoff moments, but not rings. So unless Dame wins 1 or 2 or more with Giannis for the remainder of his career, I'll take Jrue's career.
Well, the other thing is he's made hundreds of millions of dollars as well. So that was part of it. That was the big part of the argument, right?
Yeah, it was
how
the money
much
aspect.
money. But I must tell you,
Jrue career earnings, just to give you this number, Chris, Jrue career earnings, Jrue Holiday, $252 million.
He also has moments, right? Like he made one of the biggest plays. Yes. He made some some of the biggest plays in the finals, right? He certainly did it with Milwaukee against Phoenix. Like memorable moments where the steal, the alley-oop, and all that stuff. And so, man, Lillard, though, has some of the greatest moments, like, truly in NBA history.
But no rings.
I got it.
No rings. And
bro, waving goodbye to the Thunder is like, that's worth, like, I mean, it's at least worth a ring to me.
No, it's not.
The waving, yes, it is.
He would trade that moment for a ring.
I mean, I'm sure he would. I'm saying I probably wouldn't. That's forever. He's truly, I know you could say a ring is forever, but like, he has a badass moments in his NBA career. Like,
he's a badass player.
And he's had the shoe, and he's had, he's totally beloved in a city for a long time. Holiday's kind of bounced around. Like
a lot.
That is the other thing, too. It's interesting when you put a name with it because he's been a traveler. Like, Jrue Holiday is a what to you?
He's a nothing.
He retires tomorrow. No. Who?
He's nobody. He's 4 years with the Sixers, 7 years with the Pelicans.
Who do you associate him with, though?
4 years with the Sixers, 7 years with the Pelicans, 3 years with the Bucks, 1 season with Boston. I don't really remember him as any of those things specifically, but I do remember him as a champion. And maybe he wins more in Boston. Maybe, I mean, he might. It's possible. The Celtics could run it back. They could be better next season. Revenge year, Tatum and Brown after the Olympics. They could come back better. Who really knows? Maybe they prove doubters like myself wrong. And maybe they come back better and Jrue wins a third ring. Maybe Jrue Holiday plays until he's 37, 38 years old and the Celtics retire his jersey like they do every other jersey. And they have a Jrue Holiday banner hanging up in the rafters. Maybe he's remembered as a Celtic. I don't think you can rule that out.
Beloved forever, though, like Dame is. Like, he'll forever.
It's not over yet for Jrue, though. When it comes to that, he could the way Celtics fans are.
It is over.
He could be remembered as a Celtic. He could be.
Nah.
He could be.
Nah.
You don't think so, Chris?
Nah.
Really?
But
I'm surprised.
I mean, I do think
honestly, I'm surprised. Like he just. I mean, he signed and
that's like saying I would think of Clyde Drexler as a Rocket. I mean, I'm just not. I'm not going to think of him as a Rocket. You're going to think of these guys for. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, but Clyde. Yeah, but Chris, Clyde had the Blazers his entire career. You can't compare Clyde Drexler to a guy who's always been bouncing around like Jrue Holiday. So with Jrue Holiday, he doesn't have what he's remembered as yet. But he could by the time it's over with Boston. By the time his contract is over,
what's the maximum amount of years you could see him in a Celtics uniform? Truly,
2028 when that contract is up. 2028. He's 34 years old right now, so he'll be 34 this season. So then he'll be 35.
Ain't no way Jeff Bezos is going to buy that team and then keep Jrue Holiday around with that money.
Maybe.
Did you hear
37?
Say that?
Of course.
Were you surprised by that?
I mean, Bezos, when has he not been involved in some of the teams that have been for sale? He's always a rumor name, but it sounds like the way Bill framed it is that this is legit that Bezos could actually be in on Boston. And if you're Bezos,
I don't want to get into some kind of bidding war with him.
Yeah, but if you're Bezos, like to me, this is the team I'd want. Boston with their history. You can be part of that, and you can, if you're Bezos, you think in your eyes, I can make it even better for many years to come and help this team sustain this. And I thought it was interesting also how Bill mentioned how like Bezos might want to build like, the Amazon Dome. The Celtics, like they don't own TD Garden where they play home games. But the Garden's in a great location in Boston. It's right off of North Station. Like the train station is literally under TD Garden. You get off the train and you are underneath the arena. And you go up and it's easy to get there. But I do think it's intriguing, like building a better facility, a bigger facility. But they also just built a new practice arena. They just built a new practice facility. It's not connected to the arena though. So maybe that there's ways to, improve it even further. But I don't know. Boston's done a good job building the concourse around the Garden. There's a lot of new restaurants. It looks nicer now. I feel like that's more long-term that those changes would have to be made for Bezos or whoever the new owner is. But just something that was interesting to me when Bill was talking about it on his pod, because I think it's more about the basketball side, the history aspect of your Bezos buying that team more so than building an arena or all that.
That's fair. To go back to that original question, I want to give a shout out because that was an amazing one. And I do think that's very hard. And I do think people would be very split on that one. Jrue Holiday and Dame Lillard and whose career you would rather have. I think most people will say Dame Lillard. I think most people would say that. And I will tell you, I am torn on that one.
Yeah, I would love our listeners to get back to us either, through the email, nbamailbag@gmail.com, or hit us up on X. Whose career would you rather have, Jrue Holiday or Damian Lillard?
Yeah, I'm torn on that.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next question from Tinfoil Timothy, referencing our conversation last week about Wilt's 100 game. He asks, what's your favorite basketball conspiracy theory? He says his favorite is Wilt. Did he actually never score 100? It's a little suspicious. There's no photos, no videos from the game. The only photo we know of is the one after the game. It's a little suspicious he scored exactly 100, isn't it? Says Tinfoil Timothy. So, Chris, what's your favorite basketball conspiracy theory?
I like the Wilt ones. I love all of them, let me just say. I love all of them. I always love that guy's older. So anybody that they say, I love to believe that, with Serge Ibaka or, the old Manute Bol story about him being like 50 playing in the NBA, or you remember the Shabazz Muhammad thing came out, or Buddy Hield or Thon McCurr and all those ones. Like all those. I love that. Obviously the Jordan one.
Yeah, the Jordan one's my favorite. Yeah.
85 draft. I love the frozen envelope and delivering Patrick Ewing to the Knicks when they needed it most. I'm going to give you one that's not like talked about all that much, but it's always been one of mine as someone who's covered the league for now over 20 years. Like the fact that every other sport truly has been marred by PEDs, and they have just never been marred by PEDs.
Oh, yeah.
Is truly amazing. Like, we just been through it with the Olympics, right? Obviously. I mean, you're talking Olympics, cycling, the NFL. We've had guys suspended like crazy in the NFL, going all the way back to like Brian Bosworth, for God's sakes. Obviously, baseball. I mean, it's now kept a huge amount of guys and the greatest players of all time, in many cases, out of the Hall of Fame, for God's sakes. We've had it pretty much in every other sport, and yet it's never really touched basketball in a massive way to where there was like any kind of a scandal or we questioned anything about what a guy's done or records. And I don't know if that's just, and now we're at a different era, but like the way they just never got involved in that, to me, I don't even think that's a conspiracy, honestly, but it's always been fascinating to me that like that's just been separate and apart. And there have been all manner of allegations and people saying stuff over the years, and names have come up in documents, and no one's ever cared. No one's ever cared. And it really just, I think they just intentionally, in the same way that people said, like, oh, baseball just let it happen, and they wanted it to happen and whatever. Like, okay, well, if we stand to reason, you know what I mean? Because look, man, look at all the old photos. You could say, yeah, well, players have changed so much and diets have changed so much and training habits have changed so much. Bro, you run so many miles every night for 82 games. It is so hard to keep on the level of muscle that we see. It just is. It's always been like that. And now you got guys, I mean, there's guys that look like they're NFL players, for goodness sakes, in the NBA. And so, look, I don't really care, honestly. I just find it fascinating that it's the only sport it really didn't touch. And every once in a while, there'd be somebody get suspended for dick pills, or there'd be somebody suspended for, like, I remember one of the PED suspensions was like Rashard Lewis. A guy weighed like 110 pounds. It's like ridiculous, right? And yet, meanwhile, you were watching guys hulk up like crazy in those, like, the same time it was happening in baseball. Like, Bonds is hitting 73 home runs, and all of a sudden NBA players start having big, gigantic muscles, and you saw it with the NFL. And so that's not really a conspiracy theory, but it's always been something that super fascinated me. Basketball is somehow the only sport that PEDs did not infiltrate in a massive way. And my answer would be, of course it did. They just didn't care.
I have one question from your 5-minute rant.
Yep.
You said players being suspended for dick pills?
Yeah.
Who?
I mean, that happened with Nick Calathis, like it when he was with the Grizzlies. Go look it up.
It was dick pills?
Yeah.
Like
Viagra.
Viagra.
They said it. That's what they said it was.
He
He said it was something he bought at the supermarket, or not. I mean, at the gas station. I swear, that's happened before. Go look it up. He got a NBA suspension for it.
But that's what he claimed.
I mean, that's what they said, right? I think it says it probably in the press release.
For his statement tested positive for Tamo Xfen.
Okay. He said he took something that he got at the gas station.
A medication used to treat and prevent breast cancer.
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
Come on.
It's not a dick pill, is it? Cialis?
I'm just telling him.
Viagra? Those are dick pills, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not those. I don't think I don't think those are illegal. I
can't imagine those. They shouldn't be illegal.
No.
I don't know. No idea. But
I also don't think you need them if you're an NBA player.
No. Yeah, if you're working out that much, you're in that physical condition, you should be okay if you're an NBA player.
Oh, that's what you're talking about? I was talking about the girls. Go ahead.
What?
Saying it shouldn't be hard to get it up if you're an NBA player. I mean, you ever been in a lobby at a hotel after a game?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
I get it. I get it. I understand. I know it's an NBA podcast, says Zach, but I'm wondering Verno's opinion on the current state of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Oh, geez. Boo this man.
Okay. All right. Move on. Okay. All right.
They've lost 6 of 7. They're friggin' 2 games under 500. They suck. Soon as Yachty retired, the whole thing went to hell. It sucks.
I mean, I looked at the standings. They're 61 and 63. Looks like they're kind of out of the wild card right
now,
right?
Right.
Yeah, 5 out. Yeah, so not good odds to get in.
They stink. They're the most frustrating, ridiculous team ever. Yeah, they stink. The manager stinks. They stink. I don't want to talk about the Cardinals.
All right. Question from Harrison. Let's make this the last one for today, and then we'll answer a hell of a lot more questions on Thursday night's recording. Harrison said he's a listener since the bubble. He just got married. He's about to go into the Air Force. But then the day he was supposed to go to the Air Force, he got sick and tested positive for COVID. So now he has to wait, and he's only has a 1 in 6 chance to actually get the opportunity to go into the Air Force again. So Harrison wrote, this whole process has reminded me about Verno's quote about unanswered prayers being a blessing at times. What non-basketball examples do you both have in your life with this happening?
Oh, wow.
I think the most clear one in my mind is the year that the Ringer hired me in 2016. I had a job offer from Draft Express, and NBC Sports, then known as Comcast Sportsnet New England, was trying to hire me. I wanted to go to Comcast Sportsnet, but they had to create a new position for me. And with all the corporate tape and everything, on a small local level, it was hard for them to create the job for me, throughout that year, because I was just freelancing. I was young and all that. So it was like a tough, long process. My prayers that year were, man, I hope I can actually get this full-time position at NBC. I love working here. I love the culture. This is where I want to be. And that job, it just got strung along until July. And then boom, in my inbox, I get an email from Chris Ryan. Like, hey, want to talk on the phone? And I'm like, oh my God, Chris Ryan from Grantland? Now with the Ringer? And I hop on the phone with CR and we have a great conversation. And a week later, I'm talking to Sean Fennessy and the job offer's made. And I'm like, oh my God, like forget Draft Express, forget, NBC Boston. Like I have to take this amazing opportunity with the Ringer. And so, I think that's a good example in my own life, Harrison, where everything I hoped for 7 months of that entire year ended up, it led to something new, something better, and something that, set me on a path that, I'm very much happy with the last 8 years. So I think that's the one that comes to mind in my life, getting that opportunity of a lifetime very much unexpectedly. And if I had taken, a job in January, maybe that never comes.
Yeah, I think there's always ones that are like family or relationship, but on the job front, for certain, for me, it's a long time ago now. It's 2010, I believe, or the fall of 2009. I had gotten into it. I had been offered to leave the radio station that I was at for a lot more money. And I went to a guy who I thought was my friend who I was working with, and I told him, and then they basically said, like, yo, don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. So I turned down the gig, basically, and then I went back to them, and they ended up offering me not only not what I was being offered elsewhere, but less. And I lost it. I was younger, and I certainly was all stressed out. I was about to have my first kid, and I said, I'm done. I promise you I'll leave this place. I promise you. I got it all set up, and I was going to move. I was moving to a different city.
Wow. Away
And
from Memphis.
I was.
What city?
I mean, I'll tell you. So at the time, I had a friend who was a friend named Ian Fitzsimmons. He's with ESPN still to this day. And Ian was with my other buddy, Lance Taylor, on WJOX in Birmingham. And I used to do a weekly bit on their show anyway, so I was connected there. Ian had gotten a job with ESPN and was moving back to Texas. I believe that's where his wife was from. So he's moving back to Texas. So they called me and they said, hey, will you come do the show with Lance? I'm like, I'm already set up here. I'm going to stay here. And so it's hard to describe what the radio landscape was like at that time, but WJOX was one of the biggest stations in the entire South. And every afternoon, that entire state and surrounding area tuned in to listen to Paul Feinbaum. You know him. You know who Paul Feinbaum is. He's now, he left and went to Charlotte and when they started the SEC network and everything. But Paul Feinbaum was the biggest thing in the world down there. And so this was the show that led up to Feinbaum. I'm like, this is cake. It was going to pay a lot more money than I was making. A lot more. I'm like, I'm in. I'm doing it. Told my wife, I'm going to quit this place. I'm leaving. It gets to December of that year. And I get a call, and they have fired the general manager at the station. And things are changing rapidly. And they're no longer going to be able to bring me. Okay? So that's fallen apart. The people that had made the decision to bring me are now gone. P.S. I have gone. I have told my best friend to leave the station. I have told everybody I'm going to burn this place down. My producer is coming with me. And I have told my quasi-boss at the time where to put his head and that I'm done and I'm going to, and this is over and I'm leaving. So now they call me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm dead. Kevin, I'm dead. My first son was born January 18th, 2010. This is December of 2009. I have quit my job, told them I'm leaving. I have basically agreed to another job, and now that job is gone. What am I going to do? And no lie, I went back into the office. I said, hey, hold on. I've thought this through. I don't really want to move. All right. I don't really
you win an
wanna
Oscar
move.
for that performance, huh?
I'm like, I don't really want to move. So how can we work this out? And this is what I did. I was upset about what they were paying me. They were not going to be able to. Now all that money that I was going to make in Birmingham's gone. Now the money that I was going to make there, I was like, I don't want that salary. I think I should be making more. I went in there, and it's crazy that I did this in retrospect, but this is true. I walked into the office and I said, look, give me my show. I will do every afternoon from 3 to 6. Don't pay me anything. Don't pay me anything. Put me on the health insurance. Put my family on the health insurance, so I'm an employee. And give me the commercials. Let me sell blank amount of commercials every hour. And they were like, okay. Okay, sure. Go ahead. So I put on a suit and I went out, and every day I sold that radio show.
Wow.
Every day. And I ended up rallying that radio show. People jump behind it, and I'll forever be thankful to all of those sponsors. But I mean, this was like, now I've got my first kid on the way. Like I got to survive, man. And I sold that thing, and it had gotten big enough to when then another radio station offered me. And by that time, I was able to walk into that guy's office, and I threw down every advertising contract I had signed at the other station. And I said, look, I will bring all of this with me. You will not pay me a dime less. So I had created my own, and I was making triple at that point.
Wow.
What I had made before.
Crazy.
And it was but I had to go do it myself. No sale. It was all me. No sales staff, no nothing. I just went out and sold it myself. And and that's the best example I could give. That's a long-winded story, but that is the best. It is the best thing that ever happened to me, because it taught me a lot about the business. It taught me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about survival. It taught me a lot about being valued, that like, if this lesson that and I think it's hard now, especially, I don't always want to say this to a new generation because I know how it comes off. But in the end, we live in this society, and especially when you're working for a business, I think one of the questions you always have to ask yourself is, if they get rid of me, what do they lose? What do they lose if they get rid of me? And sometimes you can be caught up in the ego of it all, and you can say, oh, well, they'll lose my brilliance. They'll lose my ability. They'll lose whatever. It has to be something tangible, and that tangible is an audience, and that tangible is, more importantly, money. If they fire me, they lose money. And I think that gave me that perspective. And from the day I walked in with all of those sponsors, I then had the leverage. So now, if you want to get rid of me, here's what happens. You're going to lose money by doing it. And I think that learning the other side of it, learning how to sell, really on the fly, learning about people, and also learning about a lot of businesses, because it was like car dealerships, it was restaurants, it was dentists, it was all manner of different kinds of sponsors. But it's part of the reason I think I'll always be indebted to Memphis as a city. Like, they really, truly rallied behind me when I needed them most. And a lot of business owners did too, because my son is now 14 years old. So it happened 14 years ago. But if you would have asked me at the time, I thought it was the worst thing that had ever happened. I'm like, I have no job. I have no health insurance. We're having a baby in 3 weeks. I mean, you can't get a bigger nightmare than that.
No,
it was a
nightmare.
A nightmare. My health insurance is gone, and I'm literally going to have a baby in January.
And you're first. Like, it's
my first.
It's stressful,
and I have no
anybody.
Job.
Yeah.
And it's like, what have I done? I've ruined my life.
Yeah.
But instead, it set the tone for making my life infinitely better. Yeah, I've never really talked about that certainly not on this show. And I really don't talk about it all that much, but you asked me a question about unanswered prayers. Yeah. I think that one fits the best, right? Like, I mean,
it's a great question by Harrison. I mean, especially at a time in his life where, he's excited about the future. He's gotten something that he wanted, and then it's taken away from you because you get sick. Right.
That's right.
But hopefully it leads to better timing of going into the Air Force, or a new opportunity, or it turns out having to be home for some amount of time and ends up being a blessing in disguise.
And for anybody thinking about this, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I just think your example was perfect in that sometimes in life I find, like, whether, like you said, it's job stuff, the relationships, whatever it might be, something in school, like you apply for a certain college and you get declined, whatever it might be. sometimes in life, the thing that you think is best for you isn't actually. It can be the worst thing for you. Sometimes the thing that seems worse for you can actually be the best for you. And I think with all the experiences in my life, from severe to, minuscule, it's allowed me kind of to divorce myself from feeling down from those outcomes. And it has allowed me to really hone my focus and what are the things that I can control, regardless of what happens, regardless of what is dealt my way that's out of my control. What can I control in my own life to make the most of it? And you certainly did that in that situation where everything seemed to be going wrong, but then you put yourself in a position to make the best out of it, and it ended up being the best possible path for you. And in your entire life, how you became this amazing figure in Memphis. You have become, it's led to opportunities with The Ringer, with Bill Simmons. It has led you down a path that you never could have anticipated when everything that you wanted was in Birmingham, Alabama. And maybe your life could have ended up extremely happy in Birmingham. You don't know.
I just wanted security.
Yes, exactly. But the path that led you down is really special. And you never could have anticipated that in that moment. But what were you going to say? Sorry.
Yeah, no, like for anybody out there, this is going to sound crazy. I literally just sent the video a couple days ago to a friend who was kind of going through it. And I said, look, sometimes what you feel is the worst thing is the best thing. And it was this video I had seen on TikTok, and this is going to sound crazy. It was Shia LaBeouf, the actor. If you type in Shia LaBeouf and the Chinese farmer, he tells this whole story about his life, and he talks about listening to this, I don't know if it was a podcast or an audiobook, and he tells this parable of the Chinese farmer. And a lot of people have used the Chinese farmer parable in like different speeches or TED Talks or whatever else, but he tells this story, and man, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Because he's an actor, right? So his delivery of it, but anybody, if you just went to TikTok and typed in Shia LaBeouf, the Chinese farmer, I promise it will impact you in some kind of way. It will impact you because it's incredible, truly. And I just sent that to someone and it's the whole point of it is sometimes things are not always what they seem, right? And it's a lesson that I think we all have to be reminded of over and over and over again, We've got a lot of other.
Are we allowed to slap on the Shia LaBeouf Chinese farmer story at the end of the podcast after the credits?
I doubt that.
Are we allowed to? I don't know. Well, go find. If you don't see 3-4 minutes tacked on after we say goodbye here, that means go look it up yourself.
Yeah, go look it up yourself. It's easy to look it up. I'm sure you can find it a lot of different places. Thank you to our executive producer, Jesse Lopez, as always. And Kevin, I'll talk to you on Thursday.
Have a good week.